Hi, everyone. Welcome in. We have a lot of people registered for the session today, so we're going to give everyone a few minutes to join and then we'll get started. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We are recording this call and we will send it out after the presentation. Good afternoon. I am Jennifer Courtney, your Customer Success Manager with SK Soft. Thank you for joining us today. Chris Cavens is on the line. He will be presenting the Payment Remittance Automation presentation today. Chris, could you please do a quick introduction for us?
Sure. Chris Cavens, Senior Business Consultant and one of the primary consultants working on developing the solution that we'll see today.
Chris? We are excited to host 2 additional webinars over the next few weeks and hope you'll be able to join us as well. Our next session is on May the 13th, and we will be showcasing P-card and, P-card and credit card reconciliation. Then on May the 20th, we will showcase our payment factory automation, customer reimbursement, and bank-to-bank transfer. Our previous webinar last Tuesday, we covered what's new in our 12.3 release. If you couldn't attend and or would like a copy of the recording, please email Kelly Kaczynski. Her email is on the screen. During today's presentation, like I said, we will showcase our payment remittance automation module. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat and we will address them at the end of the session. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started and I'll turn it over to Chris.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, can we see my screen?
Looks good, Chris.
Yes, I can.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so just kind of a high-level overview of payment remittance automation and what we were trying to achieve. So if you are familiar with our AP EFT process, where you can send out an attachment that tells your vendors what invoices you were paying on what date and for how much, we have now just kind of flipped that around and we are the recipients now. And so we are receiving those payment remit advices for electronic payments that is telling us what our customers are paying us on what day for how much and which invoices in the detail. And so this functionality sits on top of our existing bank reconciliation process. It's just another step in the customer settlement rules that we use. And in addition, with the release of 12.3, we have extended this same functionality that we've seen today out to our ARE settlement lockbox. So we can do it in either place, whether you get all of your electronic payments through your bank statement, or if you do get some payments through your lockbox files for electronic payments, we can handle that there as well. And I do believe we have some poll questions that we would like to capture along the way. And so really, I'd say the first thing is, how often do we receive our email remittances for electronic payments from your customers? And I'll give that a few minutes. And while that's going on, I will just kind of walk through the process flow here. and how we get these image files into D365 to where we can mirror these up with payments coming in. And so we have two process flows. We have an outbound process flow to where the customer information gets sent out to the Xflow capture, and it's just information such as the customer account, the name, and some address and telephone information. So there's nothing to worry about from a security concern. This is just allows us to marry up those remittance attachments as they come in to a customer. And then from that customer, we know which legal entity to bring those into D365. And then you see we have a secondary, which is an inflow from the Xflow image capture. And those are your image files. We extract those attachments in the OCR engine. We marry those up with your customers. And then there we bring that into Bank Fabric, and then from Bank Fabric down into D365. Now, currently the OCR engine only supports 4 types of image files, and those are JPEGs, PDFs, PNGs, and TIFF images. It does not support reading email in the body of an email. So as a kind of a workaround, current client is just printing those to PDFs and then just uploading them to the OCR engine. And then we do see that it does not support Excel or Word or any other document type attachments. However, there is a roadmap item that we do have that we are looking into making that a possibility to where we can take an Excel attachment, convert that to one of these image files that the OCR would then read, and then push that up automatically there. So that is a future roadmap item that we were looking to achieve. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just send off an email here to the OCR to kind of just show the initiating process. And again, with the Xflow sign-up software, you do get a sign-up software ReadSoft email. And what you can do is if you have a generic email in your exchange, so maybe it's accounts receivable at mycompany.com, you can create a forwarding rule to push it up to the sign up ReadSoft email. And I'm just going to do that in my attachment. Again, I'm going to just use a PDF. And so while that's being uploaded and extracted, I'm going to go ahead and get into the OCR engine to kind of just go through a few talking points. And again, we have the concept here of sellers in the OCR engine. This is a mapping to a legal entity in D365. So when you get an email in with the attachment, it gets linked to a seller, which in turn is linked to a customer. This is how we know which legal entity in D365 to import these image and data files for you. In my master data here, my customers, again, just customer data that's been exported from D365 and pushed to the OCR engine. We can see if I click on it here, we're not really storing any real pertinent sensitive information. I just have the account number, the name, some tax registration number if you're storing that, telephone numbers, and then any address information. So when you turn on Payment Remittance Automation, any changes to the customer master in D365 to any one of these fields we are tracking, this information automatically gets pushed out to the OCR engine and updated. So you do not manage your customers in Xflow, you manage those in D365. All right. And then on some of these documents here, let me just get to what we're tracking. Again, my extraction here is We are just looking for admittance advices. So right now we have one of two choices in the OCR engine, a British remittance advice or a US remittance advice. And these are just the generalized fields that we are looking to capture data. And again, we're tracking some fields, the currency, the payment reference, the document date, document number, the total amount being paid. And then in the line item details, we're tracking what the invoice date is of the invoice they are trying to settle, the amount that they are looking to settle, and then the invoice number itself as to what's being settled. And I won't get too involved into the rules, but there's a lot of things you can set up here, a lot of validation you can configure to make sure certain fields are not blank. You can allow certain fields to pass through. So, just at a minimum here, if I have a line item total that doesn't match my payment amount, I don't let that go through. I force it to verify, or otherwise I can set that to error out. And again, I can even prevent a total amount of zero. So if a remittance comes through and it's $0, I can force it to error out and not process, just by setting up those rules. All right. Go ahead and get into a processing. And so I'm going to go into more of a user mode. And so we could see I've come up in here, I've got an upload section here. So I could start picking my seller. I could tell it which document that I'm using, if I've got one or multiple documents in the file. And then it's just simply selecting my image file here. So if, say, I was doing that workaround, so I got an Excel file, I saved it as a PDF, I can manually upload it to the OCR. I don't have to email it. And everything here, the way I have it configured right now is I'm forcing everything to verify, which means anytime I get an attachment, I'm going into this verification where a user has to manually come in here and double check the scan, but you do not have to. So here in this scan here that I've recently uploaded, because I've already scanned this customer and I've already processed it, the OCR has learned the fields and where to look. So you can see everything over here on my header section, which is in my header area up here. All our checkboxes are green. It found every field location. And then in my details down here, all of my invoice numbers, all of my invoice dates, all of my amounts paid, it knows. And so I've taught this for this customer. So if I wanted to, or I could set a parameter that says, if everything is green and I don't have any errors, I can go ahead and automatically push this through to where it's ready to be picked up by Bank Fabric. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Again, if I come into my in progress here, we can see that this one now is in a document export in progress. We have a batch job inside of Bank Fabric. And this batch job here, when this batch job runs, and again, you can run this as frequently as you want. Right now, I have it just set to run on every hour. But what this batch job is doing is it's looking for anything sitting out here that's got document export in progress, and it will pull that in. Okay, and then this one here, we can see I need a manual verification. It has not found my customer name or my customer number. And so this one's telling me I've got some errors that I got to address. So if I come into here, we could see I've got some triangles information here. And again, only because I didn't force payment reference and payment currency are these still good. I can force it to where I don't allow blanks in these fields, and it would give me the yellow triangle. But in this customer name here, I could search by typing in, or I could click on the customer name and I could come up to the customer master list for this particular seller. And I can go ahead and select a customer from the grid. Again, right now I can just click on the field here with my mouse, If I wanted to make sure it scanned the payment reference coming in for the next time, I can double click over on the image. And so it's now boxed this payment reference field here. If I want my payment currency, I can pick any field over here, but I'm just going to pick the last one here. And again, if I wanted to, instead of double click, draw a box, I can hold down my control key and just simply draw a box around that field and tab off. Now you can see here, it did its best to determine my invoice number, my invoice date, and my amount paid. And it did a very pretty good job because it did find my amounts and my invoice numbers. But if I want it to start looking through correctly, I can go ahead and I can trash my grid down here. I can take my pencil and I can start drawing in certain fields. So again, in my invoice number field here, I'm going to just click in that first row. It brings me to the invoice date field next. I'm going to just click on that first row, and then the amount paid. I'm just going to double click this amount here. I hit the green OK. Brings me back, and it fills in my invoice number, my invoice date, my amount paid. Now this will happen for any number of payments that you have in remittances. It can be 2, 3, 4 pages long, hundreds of invoices. It will capture going down and into these grids. So now, if I were to hit the OK button here, it will have learned this customer's remittance goes with this customer, and it will know where to pick up these grids the next time this image comes through for this customer. Now, the only time I've seen where I've had to reteach the OCR is if the format has changed for a particular customer. Then you would have to come back through and reteach it. So maybe they moved some fields around, replace invoice numbers fields, added some field because our columns through here. That's where you would have to reteach the OCR. So I'm not going to let that remember. And so inside of Bank Fabric here, just go through real quickly. We've got a web API communication. And so this is how we communicate with the OCR engine. It's a web API. It would require your user admin, their password. There's a unique API key with your instance. And we do have an API version. And we do have these settings here for after we've processed a document inside of D365, or I'm sorry, inside of the Xflow data capture. We can do nothing with it, just leave it in that status of export in progress. We can go ahead and give it a completed status, or we could go ahead and what I've been setting my environment up to is to just go ahead and delete the document so that when Xflow runs its cleanup jobs, it just goes ahead and cleans up all those emails. And again, we can upload your customers by legal entity or by seller, as we call it here. Or you can do, say, a shared, maybe you have a shared customer master that all companies share. We do provide that availability to upload by just generic organization to where your customers are not tied to a specific seller. So at that point in time, usually the email will tell it which seller it belongs to, or there may be required some manual intervention if you cannot separate out those documents beforehand. All right, and when that batch job runs, we have a bank file location. And in these folders here in Payment Remittance Automation, we store the details and we pass the data elements on as a JSON to D365. This would be the payment remit header table, then the payment remit details table. We store the images inside of Bank Fabric. And so we call Bank Fabric from D365. If you want to see that remittance image, we make a call out to Bank Fabric in the various tables and forms that we're in to where we can then display that image to end users without ever having to get into Bank Fabric or even go to Xflow data capture. All right, so I'm going to come into D365 and under Treasury Automation Suite and our parameters. And again, it's a little bit of a misnomer to call Payment Remit Automation an actual module. Again, it's not standalone. We must use Bank Rec or ARES in order for this process to work. But you can see here, we've got an export all customers. Again, this was just the initial load that we provide during an implementation. So if you want to get all of your customers in one swoop into the Xflow data capture engine, we do that. Once I import these remittances and go over to the table, I'll show you, what this linked and unlinked means. But when we have a remittance sitting out there in D365, usually your remittances typically should be linked to a payment within a couple of days. Usually it doesn't take that long for these to process or settle within your bank to actually receiving the payment. So if I were to say anything that's older than 25 days, that is not linked to a bank transaction, whether it be ARE settlement or bank reconciliation, go ahead and delete that automatically from the table. That way we can automatically clean this up for you. Going to leave it at 0 so I don't delete any of my data. And again, we've just got some simple communications here. We've got an outbound, which is nothing more than a batch job. And what we are doing is we are looking at the customer table and any changes to the fields that we are monitoring, whether it's a new insert, whether it's a change to the name, a change to the address information, telephone, we will flag that customer on the customer table. And then when this batch job runs, it will just go ahead and push out that change or changes for those customers. Again, the inbound communication, this is also just a secondary batch job that runs. And so what this does is this is the batch job that actually pulls the data down from Bank Fabric into D365. And again, you can run periodically as often as you want. We are just using standard D365 batch processing. My Bank Fabric remit location. Again, this is just the location where we are going to go look for the related image file that correlates to the remit ID that comes in. A tolerance account. So if we want to allow payments that might have a bit of a tolerance, whether you give it a penny, 2 pennies, $1, $5, we can push this to the tolerance account specified here. And if for any reason, which it's unlikely we have a default customer set up here, because usually your remittances would be applied to a customer by the time you've imported them in, but we do have the ability to, allow you to just push something to a default customer from the process customer settlement form. All right. So after my batch job completes, we have a new form here in our inquiry screen for payment remit automation data. This is where the initial data comes from the OCR engine. So again, I've got my header details up top, which gives me my company, my account number, customer name, payment reference, payment date, payment amount. And we do have a remit ID, which is associated from the OCR engine. And then down below, we have our line item details. Again, if I wanted to see the image, up top here, we have a view image. Again, right now, mine's just coming out as a separate attachment, but it will generate the image for me. I can print it, save it, do whatever you want with it. If I'm using it for research, I can just look up to make sure that the scan was correct. If, say, I imported this into the wrong company, I can also move this to a different legal entity. This way you don't have to go through the whole scan operation again. Again, I can just click on Move to Legal Entity, go ahead and select the company and the customer account that it's associated with. And it will go ahead and it will move it to the company. Down on the grid below here, we can see I've got a link status. I can filter my grid to see what is unlinked only anything that is currently linked to either a ARE settlement lockbox file or a bank reconciliation file. Or I can go ahead and see them all. And if I have access to multi-company, I can look at any and all companies across the board that I have access rights to see multi-company if I wanted to look at multiple at one time. All right, and you can see we've got a process flag sitting here on the lines, on the header and on the lines. This just tells me here that this one is tied to a transaction, whether it be a bank statement transaction or an ARE settlement lockbox transaction. You can see at this point in time, I can't do anything else with it other than view the image. I cannot delete this. I cannot move this to another legal entity. We locked this down because it is tied to a transaction already. All right. So let's go talk through some of the setup real quick. I don't want to get too involved in it, but as I stated before, we sit on top of bank rec and ARE settlement. And in our customer settlement matching rules, in our matching rules group, we have a new lookup for payment remit automation. Again, I've made this my first step. And then this is our remit header match rules. I can do it by date, amount, and customer. I can provide an amount tolerance, a date tolerance. Again, on this one, I'm doing date, amount, and customer again. I'm giving it a date tolerance of 3 days. And here, I'm just going to go take the customer out of the equation and then date and amount. So I give it a day of 1 plus or minus, and I'm just looking for date and amount. So when we match these up, so in our eBank rec file formats, in my transaction type setup, this is where I tell it what code I am looking for. I give it a GJ mapping group of the type customer settlement. So this tells me when I get a 179 or a 172, sorry, if go into the description and it's my default action is going to be customer settlement. So that's how we get into the customer settlement for the bank reconciliation. So anytime a 174 comes in my file, I go into this mapping rule here and I tell it it's a customer settlement. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and import my statements. And so I'm going to do the bank reconciliation first. And then while that one is running here, we also have a new menu item under periodic, under payment remit automation, process customer settlements. So if you're familiar with our eBank reconciliation, you can see that it looks very similar. There's a few changes here. We've got a settlement status. So if a transaction has been put in and is settled, partially settled, fully settled, or all, whether I've linked to a transaction, unlinked to a transaction, or all, I can filter my grid there. Whether I've submitted a journal, if it's posted, or if it's unsubmitted, I can select all. Reconciled, unreconciled, if that transaction has been reconciled or not. Typically in this case, really wouldn't matter whether you wanted to look at it that. Again, and which company I want to go ahead and look at. The bank statement. Customer group grid, customer verification, and bank account. So I'm going to go ahead and select my 731 statement here. And we could see, and in this grid here, we also only customer settlements. So only the type customer settlement are you given a view to. So if, say, you are not supposed to see the bank settlement statement process, if I go back to my bank statement on 731, We can see I've got additional transactions here that are the type match. So these are my codes in the 400s. If I'm a payment clerk, I'm only seeing those customer settlement type transactions. I do not see these 416s or 410s. They are filtered out of this grid. And so I'm only seeing customer payments. And so just to kind of show, just to take a quick look here, I want to go into my settle transactions. We can see here, I did link to a remittance, my payment amount, my remittance payment amount, my payment date, everything matched up perfectly. Down below in my grid, we can see that remittance detail, I went ahead and I've matched up all 6 of these invoices automatically. So I did not have to come in here and try to just fill in the lines, fill in the details. So the statement automatically populated these lines for me with the payments. And if I wanted to, again, see the image itself, I can go ahead and click on it here while we're inside of the process customer settlement form. And again, I can just go ahead and hit post, and it would go ahead and create that journal for me. Now, you can also set the parameters up to where if this transaction came through perfectly like this did here, it can automatically create those journal entries for you. So that is a parameter-driven process. And you see here we have an alternate test name here too. So if I'm doing a search for the customer name and I don't see it and it doesn't match up to anything in the note field, we are also providing an alternate name. So I could go ahead and click on add alternate name and just type in anything here. And so maybe the parent is making the ACH that's different from the name of your customer. We can also look for the alternate name to try to find that customer and better match. And so what this does is when we add the alternate name, it creates a record in the customer e-banking details for us. And so now if I see anything coming in here into my note field, I can match based off of anything as well. So I haven't submitted it yet. I'm going to hold off. And we can see here I've got a linked transaction, but I'm unsettled. So if I come into my settled transactions, we can see I did match to a remit header. I can come down here into my grid below. So it's looking for, it found my customer. It's looking for this invoice number here, 10,000. However, in my info field here, it says invoice 10,000 not found. Settlement amount for 300 is not been imported. So it did not put in my transaction amount here. Now, there's several things you can do. You can go ahead and you can view the remittance image to see, okay, 10,000, is that correct? We can see, yep, the scan was correct. So this is where you would have to do some due diligence. You could come through here and do a search for your invoices. I do see one for 300. It looks like they just cut off the one when sending that payment in. So I could go ahead and select that, put in my 300, and go ahead and save it and move on. So in here, I've got an unlinked and an unsettled. Again, come into my transactions. So I didn't match to a remittance. If I want to see if there's a open remittance out there for this dollar amount around this date, I can click on the link remit. And this brings me to a screen very similar to what we saw on the payment remit inquiry screen. So down in my grid here, I've got my $800 payment, my statement date. So I can start doing some filtering around payment dates. I can start doing some payments around amounts. So if I have anything equal to $800, I can see I've got 2. I can determine, okay, I've got 2 customers. I've determined it's this customer. I can go ahead and click on the link button. And we can see here, I've automatically linked to this remittance. And then in my proposed settlement grid, I went ahead and I've populated my invoice information. So if I had a dozen invoices on that remittance, you would see a dozen lines come in the grid below. So it would automatically settle those invoices to that remittance that you've attached to. If for some reason maybe I selected the wrong one, I haven't posted any payments yet, I can go ahead and I can unlink this remittance. Tells me, do I want to unlink this transaction? Maybe I selected the wrong one. Again, I could come back to my link remit, come back out to my $800, and turns out I should have selected the other one. And then again, that one was a bad remittance. I shouldn't have refreshed on that one. There we go. And so now I've tied to this remittance. Again, it's telling me this invoice number isn't found, so it did not import that dollar amount. So again, it's just a matter of me doing research to find out which one this is for this which customer. I'll go ahead and all right. And again, just wanted to show here, settle transactions. Again, we can handle credit notes as long as the credit note is in the system. This one here, I've got a positive and a negative. As long as that credit memo exists, we can go ahead and also apply that to those payments. And really the whole goal here is to get everything into a green, linked or unlinked. Again, I could come into here. So maybe I go through this 945. I can come into here and say, okay, I don't see anything for 945. Well, maybe this wasn't actually a customer payment. Again, in my proposed settlement, we can force this to go to any number of places, just like with our bank statement. I can put it to the ledger. I could put it to the default customer if I wanted to. Or I could just go ahead and I can pick a customer and just say, just go ahead here and just say remainder on account. I don't know what it's for, but I just know this customer sent it and it will automatically put in the amount for me. And again, we see we've got the statuses here that we have, just like at our process bank statements. And then out to the right, any relevant information here. We've got a statement amount. We've got the settled amount. So this tells us if there's any difference, any customer that it's going to. And then just some additional information here from the bank file itself, the transaction code, the note fields. So I could go ahead here and create my journal entries, and this will create my journal entries for everything that's in a pending new trans or pending new trans on account, and it will create a customer payment journal for you. Now, in another bank statement, you may have the issue where maybe you have a customer pays on behalf of other customers. So we do accommodate for that. Down here in my 831 statement and my settled transactions, we could see I've got a remit header here that came in for one customer that I was tied to on my header record. But in my grid below, based off of the invoice numbers supplied in the remittance, I was able to split this payment not only between customers, because the invoice number drove what customer it was, but also multi-company. So we do handle centralized payments. So I can receive a remittance from, say, a parent company that pays for 1, 2, 3, 10 children customers, and they can go multi-company. So when I get this remittance, I start looking at the invoice number. If it doesn't tie to that specific customer, I start to look for that invoice number against the open customer transaction table. And that's how we split this payment up. And that's really just the process for the bank statement. Again, it's all based on the settlement rules. Just recap real quick on that. Under my setup and under my electronic bank reconciliation rules, we have first our GJ mapping rule, which tells it it's a customer settlement. All right, and then I have my, whoops, matching rule groups. All right, customer settlement matching rule groups, my default bank rec, my matching rules. And again, payment remit automation. And in here, I have my payment remit rule. And then you just map that transaction code in your file format to that rule. So transaction type setup, my 174, it goes to my customer payment GJ mapping group, which is a customer settlement, and it tells it to go through those customer settlement rules. And so that's it for the bank rec. And I see a question here. Is there a field that shows who settled a transaction and what it is called? So in our process bank statements, oops, let me get back to. I don't know if we have the who modified it, but we typically have the modified by field, which is the last person to make that action against it. You can see I modified this one, and that was the last one to touch it.
Chris, there's also a question on how the customer list and Xflow get updated with new customers.
That's simply based on the outbound communication. And in our PRA out, it's through this batch job. So when you make a change to the customer table, when we activate Treasury Payment Remit Automation, oops, in the modules, when we activate Payment Remittance Automation, we are looking at the customer table, and we have some triggers on those tables, on that custom table. So we're looking at the name field, the address field, any new inserts, those fields that we monitor, and any new inserts will automatically get flagged for us to pick up in this batch job. So we're doing that behind the scenes. And again, if for some reason you don't see a customer, you can very easily come down here to export all customers, because with the API call to Xflow, when you export all customers, Xflow drops the table and just re-imports the data that comes in over it.
Hey, Chris,
Yep.
there was a question earlier about, do you know of any kind of, I don't think Xflow Data Capture has a published limit on the number of like line items it could scan. I don't know. Have you tried super large ones?
They do. It's in their help text. They tell you how many transactions, the size of the transactions. Yeah, it's all in here. Let me just see if I can pull it up there. So there is some size storage upload, master file size.
2,000 pages.
Yeah. So down here. So here is your document limitations.
Thanks.
The field modified by, I'd check and see if maybe it's access rights. I don't know. I'm an admin, so that could be part of the reason why. And Xflow is not an add-on to D365. It's its own separate OCR engine. So you would have an account. You'd be added to an account for your company, and the pricing is just based off of the scanned information as it comes through Bank Fabric. So you would not have to get a separate Xflow license or anything like that. They're put under our umbrella, and really that's it.
So yeah, I think there's a little bit of confusion though. Sign Up Software makes a product called Xflow for AP scans and there is a component of that that is installed in D365. None of that is required for this to work.
Correct. Sorry. Yeah. Yep. So this is Xflow, but just on the AR side. So Xflow functionality it's nothing like the AP side. It's much more limited on the AR side here. It's very, very basic, and really it's just to capture that data. And that's all we're doing here is just mirroring your scan to a customer, which in turn is tied to a legal entity. And that's really all we're doing with this OCR here. It's not involved with the AP payment process. And there's no code on your end to install. It's just you do need to have Bank Fabric again. And if you are using File Hub for, say, your bank reconciliation and ARE settlement lockbox, you can still continue to do so. You just have to have Bank Fabric to get the image information down to D365.
There was a question in chat about these customer payments. Do they create customer payment journals?
We do not.
Okay.
Yep, we do not. We simply match to an existing bank transaction or a lockbox transaction. And I can show you the lockbox.
But I'm saying when that post, it'll make a customer payment.
Yes, it makes a customer payment journal.
So
in our
go ahead.
parameters here, this is the information we take. We just sit inside this customer settlement for bank rec. So whatever bank rec is doing here is what we do. So we can set this up to be a customer payment or any customer payment journal you want it to be.
The part Chris is showing you there on the far right that says use customer payment journals for the customer settlements. That was not always the case. Those used to create general journals. So on your version, those still might create general journals, but in a later version, I believe 12.2, there was this option put in that now the customer ones can go to customer journals versus general journals.
Okay.
There was another question about how can I force overpay of an invoice? Microsoft D365 does not let you do that.
Correct.
Right. So even if we let you do that, when the payment journal would post, it would clean it up and make you not overpay the journal.
Yeah. So what we do is what you would have to do is put the remainder on account. So what you could do is in that process customers settlement. Let me get back to here, process customer settlement. Get to my bank statement. Let me just.
Yeah, Amara, that's a, at the end of the day, we're still posting a customer payment journal, so we can't do anything that native D365 won't allow underneath the covers. So you basically want to take an invoice that has a positive amount and then overpay it, so now it's got a negative balance. Again, D365 just doesn't let you do that. And there's a question is, can you customize to do it? I don't know. We have never tried that, but I know
Microsoft
you would have to mess with the
would probably frown upon that. Okay. Let me go ahead and just get my lockbox ready here real quick. All right. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a question about, can you see how a payment was applied? I mean, through standard D365, you can go into customer transactions and go into settlements and see how, what a payment was applied to, or go into an invoice and see what payment was applied to it.
Okay. So this next one here is to demo how this functionality works with the ARE settlement lockbox. And again, this is if your bank does provide electronic payments in a file for you. Not all banks do. I do know most major banks can accommodate that. So your JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, BMO can accommodate and put your ACHs and wires or other electronic payments into a file for you and deliver that as well. And so we've added on in version 12.3 for Treasury Automation Suite. This is when this is available, so that we can also then accommodate for one or the other. And so the configuration is slightly different, but relatively similar. in the sense that I've got my remittance match rule groups. Again, we've separated these out by module. Again, these are all pretty much the same here. Date, amount, and customer, amount tolerances, date tolerances. And again, my invoice matching rules. Again, we look for the invoice number. We can look at sales order, customer reference, as long as the information is there. The one difference here is when we add these to our rules here for e-settlement matching rules, inside of my matching rule, my payment remit is towards the end because I'm looking at other rules first, and then I look at payment remit. So, typically in your lockbox file, you get the check numbers from your customers in those files. And so when we have that, we always want to go with that information. So as we start stepping through our steps, again, your ACH and wires might not provide this information, so it will be blank. And as we get down to here is when we jump into the payment remit. Whereas in my bank rec, I did that very first thing was I jumped into my bank statement and into payment remittances first. But outside of that, the setup is very similar. It's the same. It's just sitting inside of that settlement rule and under e-settlement lockbox. I've in my matching rule group down here, my payment remit rule step is just sitting here. And so inside of my periodic accounts receivable, let me go ahead and pull in my import. And we can see here inside of my file, I've got 2 payments that came in. I've got 2 payments that aired, or sorry, 4 payments, 2 payments aired, 2 reported good. I go into my workbench here. Again, I can go into my settled transactions. You can look at my settlements here. And inside my lookup rule type, it found it based off of Payment Remit Automation. Once again, it populated my invoice numbers for me. I did not have to come in here and settle anything. We do have that view image up here again. So if I wanted to view the image. And again here, settlements. It didn't find anything here. It just turned into a good customer. Again, my payment dates could be off. In my settlement options here, I could come up to my here and go to remit text. And I'm sorry, link remit. It will bring me to the unlinked remittance screen. But we can see this time here with ARE settlement, I already know my customer. So it's already filtering my open remittances based off of that particular customer. Again, I can come through here and I can see, okay, this one here, it was outside of the payment date. I can highlight that. I can hit my link remit. Again, it brought in my invoice number, populated it correctly. And then down below, if you're familiar with our ARE settlement, this is just our AR payments grid. It's just the thing that you would have to do just to work through and determine which customer it is. So I'm going to go ahead and just say I did some research on it. I figured out who at least the customer was. And I can go ahead and view. And then once I'm in the good payments grid, from there, I can come up to my settlements, come up to my settlement options, and I can look for any remittance sitting out there for this particular customer. For $500, again, I can search by date. I can search by payment amount, select the one that I think that it is, click on my link button. And again, it just pulls in my detail automatically for me. So if I had 100 invoices on a remittance, you'd have 100 lines sitting down here and being settled. And then it's just like our typical ARE settlement. Once you get everything up in your good payment grid, or even from here, you can go ahead and create your payment journal, and this just creates a customer payment journal for you. And that's it. Those are the steps. So it's pretty basic in form. It's just complicated in getting the details there for it to look to the right spot. But outside of that, once everything is set up and configured, it typically does a pretty good job of lining those payments, so long as the dates and amounts line up. got some questions?
Chris, there was a question about the images. So in the images, they're visible in here, right? And then they're also
Correct.
visible in the end customer transaction screen.
Not in the customer transaction screen. So it doesn't carry down to the cust trans table. I do believe there is a future request out there to carry that through. I know we're doing it on another module. And so
Okay.
there's a future call to try to get that to kind of push down as well. But this is just in the processing screens here. Does the remit text analysis feature become obsolete? I don't understand that question.
Chris, there was a question about over settlements.
Yep.
I don't think you have any over settlement data queued up as was as kind of typing here. But, oh, you do? Okay.
I do. But I'd have to go back through, but it will not let you oversettle. It'll throw the error that Microsoft throws.
It'll just leave and so you would
It leaves the
basically
transaction amount blank and it says it cannot oversettle an invoice.
okay.
So
And then
we followed standard Microsoft on that one.
But then you should be able to just pay the invoice in full by clicking it like as full settlement and then leave the rest on account.
Correct. You could do that. And I can try to find that one. I'm not sure what they mean by remit text analysis feature becoming obsolete.
The cut and paste one.
Oh, that one. Sorry.
So there was a question,
No.
on does remit text analysis come complete? Basically, this helps automate that. So we wouldn't think that would be the need to manually cut and paste things in that remit text analysis as often, but there's nothing that's going to like obsolete that. So if you are in there and you have a remit advice, for instance, for right now, Chris mentioned Excel spreadsheets aren't supported. If those come in as your attachment, so you could still use remit text analysis for those sorts of things.
I think it's in this share. That's going with the I believe it's this one. Or was that the missing invoice? I'll have to double check. That might be the missing invoice. I'll have to find that one, Chuck, but in that case, yeah, you would have to basically just put in the dollar amount.
Been asked. Yeah, the question's been asked before because I know some other systems, like some other accounting systems, allow you to overpay, and then you kind of have that reference there. But
Right.
it doesn't allow you to do that, and there's really no automatic reference to, hey, this balance that you have on your payment belongs to this invoice. You can manually do that with by clicking the little document icon and attaching a note, but there's nothing that kind of automatically sticks with it. Oh yeah, Amanda just answered the same way. You can create a note. Yeah. I was just typing the same thing, but then said it instead. So thanks, Amanda. There was a question about a 12.0 to 12.3 upgrade. So when you go to your customer portal on SKSoft, then there is a link there to request a download. And if you download, then then you obviously would want to install that in a test environment first, and then check it out. And it does not. Our upgrade should not mess with or do anything with any of your existing rules. I think that was the general gist of the question there.
Correct.
So you would have to then configure this rule. As Chris said, it's just another rule in ARE settlement or another rule in our bank rec processing. So you'd have to just add that rule in to take advantage of this. And obviously you'd have to get the OCR stuff set up as well. So we, I think that was from, I will not get the name right, Ragovar, maybe. But anyways, we try to take special care on upgrades, never to undo or any existing setup. So by default, it should run the same way after upgrade, and then you'd have to, again, add in these rules to make it work.
Correct.
This should not conflict with any existing OCR functionality they have. Again, nothing of the OCR piece really gets installed inside of D365. So the OCR is just doing the data capture. Bank Fabric is pulling that information in then to D365. Any other questions that we didn't get to in chat? If we didn't, you can repeat them at the bottom here. I tried to answer Chris a lot of them as we went along. But if we missed one, just repeat it here at the bottom and we can get it. Otherwise, I think we're at time and Kelly and Jennifer can wrap it up.
Chris, thanks for a great presentation today. We also
No problem.
appreciate everyone attending and hope to see you on one of the demos in the next couple weeks. We will send out a link to the recorded demo today and appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.